Hi guys, welcome to this month's Q&A, November 2021. What do you look for in your string selections, and do you vary it depending on style or performances versus recordings? That's a very interesting question. So I recently posted on Instagram, I think, and over here on Patreon as well, that I tried out, I think, a couple new strings, or was it just one string? I think it was just one string with my violin, and I actually changed it again, if I'm honest with you guys, because it changed, which is interesting. So I use a combination of strings, but most of them made by Thomastik in Feld, and that is purely down to my violin. So when I started playing that violin, I also changed the strings, and that was a matter of experimenting with it. And then my professor said, try this one. You know, this is ages ago. And I did. And I would say it depends on what you want and what the basic sound quality of your violin is. So mine, first of all, what you're looking for, I look for sort of rounded evenness, obviously. So you don't want a super, super sharp E string when your instrument has a sharp E string already, and a super, super mellow G string, if you like. You know, you look for kind of balance. But I do go for more brilliance, I would say. And I once played a violin where you had to have a certain G string to avoid the wolf, so to speak, you know, a little noise on a certain note on high up on the G string. And that was also down to my professor, who put my attention to what strings you use can actually make an effect. But I personally like roundness, but more on the brilliant side. So I have a solo E string, and I have different 2D G string, and I think it's an obligato G string. I can list below the exact set that I'm using. Yeah, and I changed it to this Pirazzi E string, which I think Nikki Benedetti, I think she advertises for them, so it's certainly a wonderful string. But it made all the other strings sound too mellow, I must say. I can even post a recording where we recorded with that E string, and we're not going to use the recordings. That's why we recorded again, because I didn't like the sound of it. So it's lovely to experiment, but once you've found, you know, your kind of thing for that instrument, I think the strings you use are basically, how do I say, the instrument demands those or those strings. Not really, I like that string, and that's why I play it. And that's how I look at it. So with a different instrument, like a very old one with different qualities, you might be more successful to use a different set of strings, you know. So that's how I go about. I haven't up till now recorded on different strings for a different style. I've used a different bow though. I've done that, but it would be certainly extremely interesting with different strings. If that made a difference, I can try it out. But certainly that one experiment I can post in the, you know, unedited stuff if you're interested. Maybe you won't hear it, but I certainly did, and I changed it again. Yes, so that's about strings. Performances versus recordings. Yeah, it is difference in performance and recordings, but I personally try to keep the sound similar. I know you can also, you know, but as I say, until now I've more or less only done it with a different bow, if I'm honest. Yeah, not strings so far. And the next one, you've used digital looping a few times. Are there any other types of effects that you've experimented with? Yes. Or would like to incorporate into your music? Yes, certainly. Well, looping is actually something I would want to take and develop a bit more for the next season once Aria is finished, you know. I've actually even invested into a computer software, because what I used is the Boss RC350 looper. I can link it below. So it's a pedal looper, obviously, so you can play the violin at the same time. And it's limited. So what they also offer you, and I've used that for the rock covers I did for example, for a sweet child of mine, where there is an effect pedal that like makes your violin sound like a cello. I don't know what you would call that, but I've used that. I've used plugins that make the violin sound like an electric violin. I even have a pedal with the e-violin that, you know, makes it like guitar sounding, or wah wah effect I've used. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And also, you know, treble, reverb, what else? Distortion I've used. Yes, so quite a number of things, but I would say the pedal looper is a bit limited. That's been my experience, and that's why I've invested into that software program, which I need to learn. So the idea would be with that to combine that with a like guitarists use. That's also like a pedal with certain, not pedals, but like buttons, and you can assign functions to these buttons, if you can follow me. So you can be more flexible, so to speak. Then with the looper, it does certain things and you have to preset it before you start the performance. And then you're kind of more or less set with that. You cannot change it in between the performance, so to speak. Anyway, that's the idea. Yes, and I would certainly like to experiment with that. Yes, for sure. Absolutely, absolutely. There's also often I've had a few requests to do workshops on it, you know. So I'm very much into that, and I've started, but as you see, things are happening, practical things, building things, and all of that. And I do want to have this, at least the one album finished. But certainly, yeah, I'm very interested, and because you can create so many things, you know, and I love being creative. Yes, and I'll keep you updated of any of that if you're interested. Yes, next question.